Welcome to the blog on how do you engineer efficiently. I'm John Boynton, a senior consultant here with EPLAN, and I'm going to take you through a few ideas of how to become more efficient during the engineering process of design. So I'm going to use the package here, and first of all we're going to create a new project. So we'll do project new. On here, the key for myself here is to actually show you these templates or basic projects, standard projects. So these, as you can see, for the different industries that I may be working in, you can see I have some pre-made templates. So we're going to take this off-road one just here. Typically we can save that into the system there, so we'll just call this our blog example. So taking the template, it's basically grabbing all the aspects I need for that particular client and customer. Settings, it could even have some standard pages in there, and even some standard attributes, different criteria, regulations that I'm working to could all be brought through. Obviously this can be manipulated on a one-to-one basis, so you can actually customize it on an as-need basis, because sometimes you do get those bespoke projects and they'll come through. Let's just generate that one there and confirm that one. So straight away in here you can now see we've got some documentation come through. One of them is an administrative area, and straight away you can see our title page come through with our project details. A little bit further down I've got some placeholders in here for doing a little bit of schematic work, and if there's any data sheets, likewise that will come through. So I'm hoping you can see here that by working from a template you can actually bring through some key standard pages, whether it be a power supply, whether it be a safety circuit, some standard PLC work. Again, in the world of electrical design, people often say everything is bespoke. When you actually drill down to the details of it, not everything is unique. Okay. Now, one of the aspects that a lot of engineering companies do is they do copy paste. And why? Well, they think it's more efficient to do it that way. Yeah, again, if you've done something before, it's always good to reuse something like that. So on here, what we can see is we have project A. So maybe the engineer, the established engineer, has been working at the company quite a while, and project A was the first time he did a machine. On there you can see this machine is slightly different. So he's done some circuits in here, power supplies, some actuator circuits, etc, etc. Another colleague sort of knew he was doing that project, so again what he's done is copied some pages into his project here. This guy's engineered some. This guy, the third guy in the department, has then realised, well, this is a very similar machine. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a good aspect of that project and drop it into here, and then engineer a little bit more, but also remembering that this other guy, the original engineer, actually drew some safety circuits. He's copying those into that, and that goes on and on and on and on throughout a typical engineering process in the electrical world. Copy paste, all good. You're making reuse of circuits. The bad part of that is if those drawings have not been checked and they're error free, what you're doing, guys, is you're copying those errors throughout every job you're doing. And how do we fix those errors? Well, we have to re-engineer work, and that could be done down at the schematic engineering level, or it could even be, worst case, following up on site and doing some last minute sort of commissioning and modification work on site. So you've got the costs involved with that one. So what we want to do is if we go on to the next page on here, we'd like you to make reuse, which you're doing with a copy paste, so you're doing a reuse, but you're fixing a lot of individual engineering points. So what we'd like to do is have more reuse and less detailed engineering come through. And how do we go about doing that? Well, that will be done with macros. So again, on one of the other blogs, we should be able to find out a little bit more about the use of macro technology and also macro projects. But let's just say, if you're not familiar with those, very similar to an intelligent block that you probably have in CAD, but again with variant technology and option technology. They are the fundamental basics to the world of automation. They are our standard building blocks. So what we're going to do on here now is I'm going to start up my system and use a program on here called Cogeneer. So this has our environment, Cogeneer. What I need to do is call up one of those libraries, those building blocks on here. So I'm just going to call up one of my projects, and we don't need to update it for the moment. So just for a quick insight onto here, what you can see is I have a section here called power supply. Now that power supply on here is, you can see down here we have the main circuit, but there's an option. There's an option here like a phase monitor. So all I need to do now is actually say what's a target project. So you remember the one I started here, this blog example. This is for a grinding machine for the axle work. So on here I could click one button to generate that grinding machine for this four-wheel drive off-road company. But because that's our bread and butter machine, yeah, one click's okay. But what I'd like to do is just go through that with a few options. So what we can do on here, do we need to have that phase monitor as an example? So we can say yes in this case. When it comes down to the lights in the enclosure, do we want lights in all the enclosures, or only in the power cubicle, or only control cubicle? So we'll say in this case only the power enclosure. So how many plug and sockets do we need? So plug and sockets obviously being for the programming. So do we need one in this enclosure? Maybe no, but over in maybe the control enclosure where we plug into the PLC, maybe we need a plug and socket in there, a mains socket. Do we want the emergency stop on the panel door, which is this one, and on the operator panel also an emergency stop on there. Control panel in the control area, so again we've got a choice of where we have this sort of setup, so we can say yes to that one. Now the drive system on this particular project, do we want the drive or the conveyor system to be reversible, or do we want to go with a frequency, a variable speed drive? So we'll go variable speed drive on this one. And the positioning of maybe the grinding heads or something, again this could be electric or pneumatic on there, we'll leave it as pneumatic. So again, when people say yes, we've got our machine but every job is different, yeah, so is this. I'm saying I've got a power supply, but I can also then say, we would like to have these different aspects or options available. What we're now going to do on here, guys, is hit this generate button. That's now taking the standard library options, so this saves me copying and pasting every time. It's coming through automatically, so it's not as if I'm hunting through old projects. Maybe it looks sort of right, maybe it doesn't. So again, it's time that you're spending going through the old projects to put them into your live design, where here literally coming from that standardized library, which has been quality checked for errors as well, I might add. Remember I talked about before the generation of errors and such. So now on here you can see we've now got the EFS1 schematic section on here. If we drill down onto here, now you can see this is where we have our power supply page onto there. If we then look at the motors on this particular area here, you can now see we've got the variable speed drive coming through onto there. So let's just make a couple of options or changes, because maybe the customers said okay, a bit of a budget, so we're going to remove the measuring transformer or transducer, and rather than going variable speed drive, we'll put it back to reversing option. We'll do a regenerate now on here, and as I say, what you'll find is it's now just rereading those building blocks back into the project onto here. And if we now revisit on one of these pages, we're just waiting for the green light at the top, and anytime now that will come through for us. Okay, here we go. So straight away you can now see we've replaced the variable speed control and its associated equipment, so we've now gone reversible onto that one. And if we go back to the power supply page, you can now see that measuring transducer has been removed from the circuit. Because we set the template up as well, literally in the background what we can do is just hit one button and we can then generate all our reports, because they were in the template, and these reports here are specific to that particular client. So it's not as if I've got to go into the settings. If I'm just copying from one origin point, straight away we've now got the connection reports, termination diagrams, etc. coming through. Okay, well thank you for your time, and as I say, if you want to see more on for instance the structures, you can see here for instance what I'm doing. I'm using a functional based design on here. You can see everything, the inputs and outputs are related to the the drives, etc. So a functional design is also available in one of our earlier blogs. But for now, thank you for your time.